sportstv.com and the Black Balls channel. My name is Dr. Boyce Watkins, and a lot of you may or may not know about this. There's an ESPN analyst by the name of Malika Andrews, and Malika is a young commentator, very pretty lady, seems relatively smart, but she's really, really upset a lot of the black men at ESPN and a lot of black men in general. Right now, the internet's kind of roasting her pretty bad. Kind of, concluding that she doesn't let black men talk. She doesn't have a lot of respect for black men, things like that. I'm echoing now. Let me turn off. There we go. All right. So I was echoing. Sorry about that, guys. So yeah. So anyway, to talk about this issue, I wanted to bring in my good buddy from the Boss Sports Channel, Jeff Lightsy Jr. How you doing today, man?
I'm good, Dr. Boyce. How about yourself?
I'm doing really good, really good. I saw the stuff with Malika, and I was a little bit concerned. She came out and, really had a lot to say about that whole situation with Ime Udoka. By now, in fact, let me ask everybody. First off, I'm going to do a quick little quiz. Give me a yes or no if you've heard of Malika Andrews. Let me know if you even know who she is or what she does and why we might be talking about her today. Give me a yes or no in the chat if you've heard of Malika. And so I'm going to get your answers on that. And then also give me a yes or no if you've heard about the situation with Ime Udoka with the Boston Celtics. Ime Udoka was the head coach and got caught in a situation with a coworker, stuff like that. He got suspended. So there's Malika right there. She's on there with Matt Barnes, I guess, yelling about something. I don't know what she's yelling about. But anyway, it seems like a lot of the brothers have a real issue with Malika. And it's kind of really taken off. She's actually trending on Twitter right now. So, Jeff, what's going on with that?
So the thing with Malika Andrews, if you don't know, like you said, the Ime Udoka stuff broke, right? And talked about, and he's been suspended for a year from the Boston Celtics, for breaking team. They call it team policies. They wouldn't go into details. They're very vague. But it came out in the reports that he had consensual sex with a employee of the Boston Celtics, and there's obviously some more into that. But if it was consensual, you don't suspend somebody for having an affair, technically, not in basketball, especially when a lot of them are doing that. But regardless, he's been suspended, and the internet set ablaze the day that it came out of who he could have had this affair with. And obviously, there was some grotesque things. It's the internet. When stuff like this comes out, like in his fiance, longtime fiance is Nia Long, like the internet and Black Twitter or whatever is going to have the field day with that kind of stuff. Malika wasn't happy about that. And so on First Take, it really started on First Take when Stephen A essentially said he doesn't like the way that Boston didn't clarify anything. They just left everything super vague. And when you leave things super vague, you leave the internet to try to play detective and the internet to do what it wants to do and run wild. And she was upset so much so that she went on First Take and told Stephen A to stop it. Told this man to basically hush up because you don't get on some feminist type stuff, like some feminist talking points. And basically she thought he was saying they should release the name of the woman that he had sex with. But he never said that. That's something that I would say. That ain't something Stephen A would say. That's something I would say because if you're so upset, the Boston Celtics during the press conference were so upset that the internet was running wild and posting pictures of different Celtics employees and saying, oh, it could be this person that Ime had sex with or this person or whoever, blah, 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 right? If you don't want that to happen, and if it was consensual, then release the name of who it was, especially since they're not getting punished and he is, because that's the other thing that came out. The female employee that he had this consensual relationship with isn't being punished. But Ime is suspended for an entire year, and let it be known, I'll put it on wax, he'll never be the head coach of the Boston Celtics ever again. They're dangling this over his head just on June 30th to tell him, sign his pink sheet and let him go. And that's what Stephen A didn't like. It's like, why dangle this over his head? If he did something that was egregious outside of what you're releasing, just fire the man. You know what I'm saying? Just fire the man. But who he's laying in bed with, if that's your only problem with him, shouldn't be dangled over his head and suspended. But if he did something more than that, like quote unquote harassment of any sort, then you should just fire him and move on. Don't just suspend him for a year. So anyway, back to Malika. She kind of took this approach of, kind of the believe all women kind of approach, the feminist approach, almost like women can't do any wrong. And that's not to say this woman did any wrong, But if you're going to be mad at the internet for running wild with the story or running wild and posting pictures, and I'm not saying those people are right, but it leaves them, when you are super vague and you don't give details, you leave the internet trolls or whoever the leeway and the leverage and the creative ability to go crazy. And then, so that happened on First Take. And then later in the day on Malika's show, Kendrick Perkins, who played for the Boston Celtics, who won a championship with Boston, who still has deep ties and connections to the Boston Celtics, spoke about what he knew, because he knew things, he knows things that hasn't been released. But once again, he didn't take the approach of release the lady's name. He just took the approach of, this suspension shouldn't be like, this shouldn't have happened. You know what I mean? If we're just basing it off the details that you're laying out, he shouldn't be suspended for a year. And Malika kind of snapped at him like, oh, you don't know, you don't need to be saying that. It's like, no, he can say whatever the hell he wants. You know what I mean? Like, he's not, and she's like, you're speculating. He's like, I ain't speculating nothing. I'm telling you what I know. I'm just not giving you all the great details now. But I do know what happened because he has ties to that connection. And the reason why the internet is going off on Malika, one is she's super protective over, it's not a victim, at least not that we know of. It's not a victim. It's a woman who works for the organization. And according to the reports, it was all consensual. So it's not a victim. She was super protective of the woman and doesn't want the name released. And a lot of people are speculating is because she allegedly dates someone who works at ESPN. He's a man by the name of Dave McMenamin. He's a white man and he's a reporter. And then you go to the fact that these are black men that she is being so authoritative towards or so demonstrative towards. But when it comes to it, a lot of people feel like if the roles were reversed, if this was a white man, she wouldn't have came off as strongly because she is dating a white man and she has a white parent. Now, although she has a black father, it's kind of like, we've seen this before. And not just have we seen this before, we've seen this before at ESPN. Now they're calling her the 2022 version of Sage Steele. And it's so funny because the internet is running wild right now. And the black men are kind of like, man, to hell with Malika because she's tweaking basically. And it's funny because the way the Malika rose to prominence, this is no disrespect, not to discredit her career, but she was on a ascending trajectory. They got a speed boost because of Rachel Nichols. So, Doc, I'm going to give you a little story, and then I'm going to be quiet for a second. When the NBA, when sports shut down in 2020, COVID kind of shut down everything. And the ESPN, they still wanted basketball games. So the NBA created the bubble in Orlando and all went down there. So Rachel Nichols, when she was in the bubble in Orlando, had her mic. She had a hot mic, and it was recorded. And she said, she didn't say nothing that was bad, but she was kind of like, they're giving Malika a lot of stuff that I think because of the George Floyd stuff is essentially what she was saying. Because of George Floyd, they're kind of giving her a pedestal she ain't rightfully deserved yet. Somebody like me, Rachel, at the time, like put in 20 years to this thing to get to this same spot. And Malika, who at the time was like 24 years old, was at the exact same spot essentially. And so Malika's career got a boost after that because Rachel Nichols was canned due to those comments and her show was scrubbed and was destroyed. And in came Malika and her show. So all the gigs that Rachel was getting, the TV show, all the NBA sideline stuff, all the stuff now became Malika's. But when Rachel got it, she was probably in her 40s, whereas Malika got it at age 26 or 25. So she got a big boost due to quote unquote racism. And now you see her playing what Tariq Nasheed would call the bedwench role against black men. You get what I'm saying? So it's like, whoa, like you got this because and the thing is it helped because black men were supportive. It's okay. Yeah, we like Rachel, but she said some stuff that was slick racist. Oh, but they're gonna give it to a black woman and she happened to be pretty. Malika Andrews, you know what she's talking about? Oh yeah, cool. We'll all ride with you. We're rocking with you, cool. And the NBA is obviously majority black men, both as viewers and participants. But then you do this. It's kind of like, damn, to get you your spot. We was rocking with you to get you your spot. Where you at currently? And this is kind of how you treat us. As soon as the black men get caught up in some BS and whatnot, he had his hand in the cookie jar. We're not saying he was right. It's not perfect, but it is what it is. You switch up on us like that? Like, come on, man. Like, what's going on?
Let me jump in on this. Well, first of all, everybody, I'm talking to Jeff Lightsy Jr. from the blackbosschannel.com. And we talk about issues that relate to black men actually on their platform. So please subscribe if you care what black men think, if you are a black man or you want to hear from black men, because people don't listen to black men enough. And we're talking about this host at ESPN named Malika Andrews. Malika is she appears, I think she's biracial. It looks like her mother's white, and I think her father's black. I looked up her bio, couldn't quite find out exactly. But either way, though, she's really drawn a lot of ire on the internet, where people are asking a legitimate question. They're saying, which it won't sound logical on the surface, but it's a good question. Is she racist against black men? And let me just ask y'all a question. How many of y'all believe that there are some black women, because maybe they have an issue with black men, because of maybe something that their daddy did, or because they were scarred in a certain way, can actually have as much disdain toward black men as a white man might have? Like, really, how many of y'all believe it? How many of y'all know this? And this is a reality that I think people don't really, sometimes when we judge books by their cover and we say, oh, because you have the same skin color as me, that we're the same. Well, sometimes you ain't the same. And I can tell you, when I first heard her reaction, to this whole situation with Ime Udoka, which nobody, we've talked about this. I've talked about this with my wife online. I've talked about it individually online. And the thing with Ime Udoka, you don't shit where you eat. That's what he did. That's the mistake he made. It was a problem. He shouldn't have done it. But also there were people who were making the legitimate claim to say, if it was consensual sex and he was allegedly sleeping, let's say, with the wife of the vice president, why is his name being splattered all over the media? And Nia Long's name is being splattered all over the media. But somehow they are treating this other woman, this white woman or whoever she is, like she's a victim. And she's not a victim. She slept.
At least from the stuff that they've reported. And that's the thing. That's the thing. Like, it's not necessarily saying, like, maybe there is a victim, but say that. Like, all you're reporting is that everything was consensual. Well, if everything was consensual, why is he the only one getting punished? If everything was consensual, like you said, why is his name and Nia Long's name and all these people being blasted, and these people are these other participants are being held in witness protection? Now, if something harassment or whatever did happen, then okay, we can respect that. But just fire the man and say, hey, we can't condone that kind of behavior. But if everything was consensual, what are we talking about here? We're talking like about God, like y'all suspending the man over some personal problems. That doesn't make sense.
It's some plantation shit. It's like you slept with master's wife, so now you're gonna get kicked off the plantation. Like, that's what it real. Because think about it, you can't even make the argument. People would always make the argument that, well, it's the power dynamic. The more powerful person, he probably told her that if you don't sleep with me, you're gonna lose your job. Y'all tell me this: if she is the wife of the vice president of the Boston Celtics, how can you make that power dynamic argument? How can you make this argument that somehow she was in fear of losing her job? You cannot make that argument. She was a lady that slept around on her husband. That's what it is. And is it smart? No, it wasn't strategic for either one of them. We don't know what else is there. Maybe Ime, for all we know, there could be other stuff going on with Ime that we don't know about. Nobody knows. And this is, to me, what's interesting about this is Malika Andrews' approach is one that feeds into the gender war. She comes in guns blazing at black men, trying to shut down. Pay attention now. Think about this. This is that white woman entitlement. That's what she's got, a white woman's entitlement. She just has brown skin, so it's hidden, but she's got white woman entitlement because only a white woman thinks she can go on the show of a 58-year-old man that's more than twice her age, and be like, stop. You be quiet. She did a straight Karen on Stephen A. That's what that was. White women do that. Y'all know what I'm talking about. Give me an amen if you've ever seen this, where a white lady walks in acting like she owns the damn place and ain't even been there for 3 or 4 minutes. That is entitlement. That is white privilege. That's what that is. That's Becky energy. So at the end of the day, it's like, y'all need to, if you rip away her black skin, see her black skin has been her cover. And some of these brothers wanted to support her because there are black men. Like, these guys were trying to be polite. They're like, look, we don't want to be offensive. We don't want to defend Ime, but here are some justice issues that we'd like to make sure are addressed. And she's coming in there finger wagging with her 27-year-old self. See, Jeff, I'm sorry, brother. I know you're not 20. What are you, 26?
26. Yes,
let me just tell you this, man. I'm going to make an OG statement right quick. You got to be as old as I am to know how young you are. Seriously, you just have to. You don't get it. When you're 26, 27, you think you've done it all. You think you know as much as a 50-year-old. When I was teaching at Syracuse, I would run into 19-year-olds who swore they knew more than 50-year-old professors. And it's like comical because you don't. You don't. So this lady gets again, this is white Becky privilege. She just happens to be black. She gets put into this position that she is clearly not qualified for. She gets put in a position that other people really earned. Even Rachel Nichols, the white lady. I'm not going to sit here and defend what she said, but I'm like, I remember when they took Rachel Nichols' role, kind of shoved her out and put Malika in. Rachel's 48 years old. She was doing this when Malika wasn't even born yet. Like Malika was in diapers and Rachel was holding the mic and commentating games. So I understand. So my point is to say that when you look at the entirety of it all, you have this entitled white woman, Becky-ish, Karen-ish behavior where she's literally talking to guys. She's literally talking to men who played in the NBA and telling them what it's like to play in the NBA. I think that's why it's hilarious. It's the most comical shit I've ever seen. And this is white man. The white man bolstered her up above these black men on this ESPN plantation, and they got to go and submit to her. And it's not fair. It's wrong. So I think, long story short, I would say that with Malika, I understood. I didn't understand at first, but I saw where some of the players literally won't even answer her questions. She asked a question, and the guy that plays for the Bucks, Giannis. Yeah, I can't say his last name; it's too long. But you know what I'm talking about. Giannis he asked that question, and it wasn't a bad question. Giannis just got up and walked out of the room. And I don't blame him. What do you think? Go ahead, Jeff, please.
No, it was funny. And so when you put everything into context, like you said, stuff like that is popping up that most people just wouldn't have thought about. I mean, it was something that happened 3 years ago, or it was another clip that I remember watching this episode live when Richard Jefferson, who played 15 years in the NBA, Matt Barnes, who played another 15, 17 years in the NBA, and Kendrick Perkins, who played another dozen or so years in the NBA. They were talking about a play, and they were saying, oh, this dude, when he did this play, it was dirty. And she was like, now, you guys don't know what you're talking about. It wasn't dirty. He's like, no, we know. We got to combine like 40 years of NBA experience or 35 years or whatever.
Yeah, I saw that. Yeah, Richard Jefferson's like, I broke my hand on the dunk one time. And he's like, did you ever break your hand trying to dunk on somebody?
It's funny because he actually asked him, he said, how old were you guys when y'all first dunked? And they were all like 12 to 13 or whatever. He said, yeah, I was 13. And so I know, and so basically he was saying, since 13 years old, I know when I go in the air and somebody attacks me a certain kind of way, they're maybe not trying to hurt me, but they're trying to do some kind of damage. And they know if they do X play, then it's going to cause a certain amount of hurt and damage. And so, but she was trying to like kind of buck up to them. It's like, no. Sit this one out, sweetie. Like, I'm not trying to degrade you as a woman or anything, but you never dunked the basketball. And
let me jump in and say this too, man. Like, they have the right to do that. They have the right to say, look, you need to sit this one out. You're not qualified for this conversation, and it's not sexist at all. Not sexist at all. Let me tell you why it's not sexist. Because there are times when my wife is talking to another woman about something that only women understand. If my wife is sitting there talking about the pain of childbirth, I'm not gonna be like, well, no, having a baby don't hurt. All you gotta do is spread your legs and just shit it out real quick. You just push it. Come on, you a punk, right? No, I would look stupid doing that. Those are conversations where I need to shut up and learn and listen. And the problem with a lot of the feminists, many of them are white, the Karen Becky energy, is that they think they know everything about everything. They feel like they have a right to lead any conversation, to control any situation, to invoke their energy and their little narrative into whatever they want, and it's just wrong. It's disrespectful as hell. So I'm gonna tell you, I think the guys at ESPN, if any of them are watching, y'all need to just go revolt. Y'all need to go and just say, look, we don't have no problem with you. We think you'll be great for this role in about 15 or 20 years, but we're gonna go find another sister that's truly qualified, that has respect for black men that can have this job. I really don't like the idea that this person is even in the position she's in with the energy that she's had. And you could tell, and here's the other part too. I want you to talk about this. Tell me about this. So some people have even wondered if that white guy that she's taking pictures with is her boyfriend that she was dating that actually works at ESPN. And if that was the case, That would be interesting because for two reasons. One, is interesting politically because you got this this biracial woman who's dating a white man telling black men what to do. I'd be curious to know what her relationship was like with her father, because if you look at Jemele Hill, and Jamel's not as bad as her, but if you look at Jemele Hill's relationship with her father, it's very, very bad. A lot of women who have bad relationships with their black father have a big issue with black men. Give me a yes in the chat if you've ever seen this played out in real life. I'm just telling you the truth. They need to go see a therapist. Some of them don't, and then they just end up beating up on men for the rest of their life. But then the second reason it's interesting is if she was sleeping with this guy at any point or dating him or whatever, well, it sounds like she's doing the same thing Ime Udoka's doing. Maybe the difference is that maybe she reported it to HR, right? Last time I checked, people that have affairs, they don't report that to HR, right? Mm-hmm. But maybe she reported it to HR, but it sounds like it could be the same thing. Is that right? Or what do you think?
Yeah, so like you said, especially if it's all consensual. That's the thing. The big word that keeps coming out in the email, we're just talking about email thing, it's consensual, meaning he didn't force anything. Now, if he did, say that and just fire the man. But the simple fact that you didn't fire him lets me know, kind of give me some insight that it wasn't some form of harassment, that he didn't force anything, that everything was consensual. And so in Malika's case, her relationship, just like Ime, is consensual. The only difference is she's a reporter, Ime's an NBA coach. She doesn't have a fiance, and Ime did, and his fiance happened to be super famous and need along. Like, there's some factors there. But the biggest thing is, like you said, you can't just, I don't know. It's interesting because, like you said, Malika's biggest fan base wasn't black women. It was black men. And so, like, think about it. Who consumes more NBA basketball than the players who are actually playing and the black men who are watching? That the reason why Malika is in the position that she is in and she is as popular as she is because of black men. It ain't because of white men or white women. It's because of black men and women, but specifically that demographic. And that is why she's trending, because her biggest fan base or her biggest base has now turned on her. And now they're looking at her like, hold on. Have we been supporting Uncle Ruckus this whole time? Like, hold on. Damn, like, Malika, was you know what I'm saying? Was you a wolf in sheep's clothing? Like, you kind of coming off with that energy that's like, hold on, my God, like, what's going on?
Well, let me say this, man. I will just say in general, white feminism has rarely been in favor of the black man, unless the black man completely and totally submits to whatever ideology white women are behind. And that's the problem, is that because there are legitimate problems in our society, there are legitimate cases where men treat women poorly. There are legitimate cases of things like sexual assault and harassment. What happens is that it's the good guys that get beat up. The good guys are the ones who are like, okay, I don't want to upset you. I don't want to be a sexist. I don't want to be a jerk. And so I'll be nice, but then sometimes they'll come in with this crazy energy and it becomes like almost impossible to deal with. I'll give you an example. There was a lady that I had on my podcast 10 years ago who was a really strong feminist. She was a black woman, but she related heavily to white women and what this white feminism thing. And she came in kind of feeling like the black man was the enemy and that she always had to be on guard, ready to fight, ready to shut down any hint of sexism in the room. So let me tell you what happened in the interview. So I was interviewing her and a bunch of women. There was about 3 women in the room, a total of 4, her and 3 other women. And I said, okay, all right, you guys. So here's how we can do the show. And she interrupts me and she goes, "We're not guys, we're women." And I was like, "Oh, I'm really sorry. You know what? I'm so sorry. I just say guys in a non-gender specific sort of way. I say it to my girls, you know, like I didn't mean anything. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. You know, I'm doing that whole routine, right?" And then during the interview, I slipped up again, and I said, "Okay, all right, guys, let's change the subject, right?" And then she interrupts in the middle of the interview and says, "I told you we're not guys." And I was like, "Damn, like really? Like you really interpret my slip of the tongue to be somehow like an insult to your feminist sensibilities? I'm not getting away. I don't have any issue with you, but now I do. Now I'm offended. Now you up here on my show, up here trying to just attack me for something that's silly. Maybe you take me to the side and you explain it. Maybe you and I have a talk about it later, but don't be up in here trying to bogart, putting your balls on the table, like somehow you about to run this piece up in there." So that's why I will admit I enjoyed the fact that Stephen A. Smith, when he brought Malika Andrews onto his show, and she came in with that whole Stephen A. stop, that whole white woman entitlement, Stephen A. shut it down quickly. He said, "You're not going to do that on my show." I'm very glad he did that.
Absolutely. And the thing is that I seen one of the comments that was like, yo, is there any way to change? It's hard to change. That's the thing. When black folks, when we get, you know what I'm saying, you show us a little inkling of who you are, we take you for that. A lot of us, we don't go, oh, we ain't gonna try it. Nah, you kind of like trying to put toothpaste back in the tube. It's like, the damage is done. Because not only did you do it in the one instance, you did it multiple times in the same day. And so now that causes, because the internet never forgets, it causes them to bring up other clips, like the dunking thing, like the Giannis walking out thing. Now you're wondering, like, why did Giannis walk out on her? Or dang, she did kind of act a little snooty on that. And now, anytime that she does it moving forward, the internet will continue to trend because now the folks are hip to it. You know, you showed your hand. You might have been hiding it for a long time. You know what I'm saying? But now that you showed your hand, we're going to always see it. We're going to always continue to criticize and critique it. And like I said, your biggest demographic is now turned on you. Your biggest demographic, your biggest supporters, they don't want to hear from you no more. Because at the end of the day, people try to make it, oh, black men hate black women. That's not true. That's not true. Or black women hate black men. That's not true. But there are, this hand select ones that do. And that's the thing. Us as a community, that's why what strength is always in numbers. Us as a community, no, we rise up and we stick together in the grand scheme of things. We stick together. And that's why Malika is trending and everybody's on the same side of the ball. Like, yo, we're all saying like, yo, G, she ain't, she's a little funny. All skin folk ain't kinfolk. And now she's starting to reveal her hand. And can you flip it back? It's kind of hard to flip it back. I'm just saying. I'm not saying it's impossible, but I haven't seen it happen. I'm just saying. I haven't seen it happen.
Well, let me tell everybody. Jeff is joining Johnny Ortiz and some others to actually talk about sports and issues like this at the All Black National Convention. And if you'd like to join us at the convention, we're going to meet in Charlotte, North Carolina, October 28th through the 30th. So if you are pro-black, if you are pro-black love, pro-black family, pro-black wealth, pro-black power, then it's the place for you. Take a visit to allblacknationalconvention.com. You can get your passes. You can become a vendor, market your business, all that stuff there. So feel free to go to allblacknationalconvention.com. So Jeff, before I head out, because I got to run, I actually have to run to a meeting, man, but this is a fun conversation. How do you think this is going to look going forward? I cannot imagine her, ESPN putting her on the air on a regular basis in front of a bunch of brothers like us and expecting us to just give her any credibility. And I'm not saying that she's not good at what she does. She doesn't know her stuff. I think she does. But what I also see is undiagnosed, untreated trauma that she's airing out in public, and it's making her look kind of ridiculous. It's killing her ability to remain professional, right, in this setting. There's something that happened in her life, maybe something that happened to her, and I hope it wasn't terrible, or something that happened with her black father that she's playing out on air. I think that when her reactions to all those men shutting them down and all that, I wonder how her white mother talked about her black father growing up. I'd be stunned if her black father raised her. I'd be absolutely stunned. I'm not saying it's not possible. I'm just saying I'd be stunned, and I'd be curious to know what that relationship was like, because there's something there emotionally. I don't know. Do you see something? I see something emotional that's making her kind of get out of pocket a little bit. What do you think?
And possibly, I think that her black father was a part of her life. I'm like pretty certain because her sister now works at ESPN, so they did like a little short thing about their family and both of them being into sports. And I think they're from the Bay Area. Ironically, I think they're from like the Bay Area, San Francisco, Oakland type area. And so I think he actually is now. What their dynamic is, I don't know. But no, ESPN's gonna keep trucking along, because you know why, right? It's because Malika's bucking up to black folks. She's bucking up to Matt Barnes and Kendrick and Stephen A. She ain't bucking up to like when Jamel got out of pocket with like Donald Trump or some, you know what I'm saying? Or when Rachel, who was white, talked about the black people during the height of George Floyd. That's how they got the can. But Malika's talking about Stephen A. and she's bucking up to black men. They're not gonna punish that. Like, if she was bucking up to, I don't know, Scott Van Pelt or somebody, you might get some form of punishment. But she bucking up to Stephen A. and Kendrick Perkins, it's going to be all systems go. Now, if anything happens to where an NBA player doesn't want to sit down with her, which I don't think it'll get to that extent. I think it's just more so the internet, right? But if an NBA player start to decide that, like, hey, I ain't sitting down with Malika, or hey, I'm good on that, then you might see a change. But as long as, she's attacking black men, well, yeah, it's gonna get on TV. Attacking black men gets on TV. You don't get punished for attacking black men on television. I mean, that's just the truth.
Well, let me tell everybody something that an ESPN analyst told me in private. He said that that ESPN, one thing that he believes happened, and this is a prominent guy. This is the guy who's very big on the network. If I said his name, you know exactly what I was talking about. He said that ESPN noticed that the unemployment rate for black men was very high. And they figured out that a lot of black men are sitting at home watching sports all day. And he said when they realized that, they realized, okay, we've got a great in-house demographic that we can really build our network off of. And he said that's when you really started seeing a lot of black men on ESPN. And because if you go back and look at ESPN 15, 20 years ago, it was a very different looking network. They'd have some brothers in there like Stuart Scott and whatever, rest in peace of Stuart. But, but now you notice the tone has changed and it's become kind of a black men's network. So I'd be really curious to see how this plays out. I think that this is, I think it's kind of sad. And I really am glad that these guys are standing up to this lady because her behavior, it's just kind of ridiculous, man. I think brothers, this is to all the good men out here, all the men that don't want to harass nobody, that ain't trying to get out here and hurt nobody, who are just trying to be good people, raise your kids and be solid citizens. Understand that some of these movements, they label you in an unfair way, and you have a right to stand up against that. I don't care what, when I speak on certain things, sometimes I'll get, people throw a name in, oh, you're a sexist, you this. No, I'm a human being and I have rights and I'm going to share my perspective just like you have the right to share yours, and stop using your white privilege to somehow think that I don't have a right to have a voice. So I hope these brothers keep using their voice. I'm really proud that they're standing up because Ime Udoka may have done the wrong thing, but if you ain't going to be dragging a white woman's name out there, then don't be dragging his. That's it, period. Mm-hmm. So thank you, Jeff. It was great to see you, man.
Appreciate you too, Doc. Always great.
Yeah. Let me give Jeff's social media. Everybody should follow Jeff Lightsy Jr. He is great on everything related to sports. And it looks like my video went away, so it's actually probably the perfect time for me to bounce out. But there's his Instagram tag and his Twitter tag. Everybody should follow him at jlightsy7. And don't forget the All Black National Convention's coming up. So if you'd like to join us in October, please visit allblacknationalconvention.com. So take care, everybody. And sorry that my video disappeared. I don't know what the heck happened, but y'all have a great day. Love you. I'll see you soon. Peace. Oh, there I